right, Mr. Simple Biz Guy, let's start the show.
Hello, everybody, and thank you so much for tuning in to the SimpleBiz360 podcast. My name is Jeff Mason, and I am your host for this episode. And as you've heard my grandson now for almost 250 episodes, all right, Mr. Simple Biz Guy, let's start the show. So he's a bit older now, a bit taller than when he recorded that, but yep, you know what? I just, simplifying business. How can we do it? How can we do it in impactful ways? And that's what we've been all about. So today's installment is Career Corner, kind of a little Career Corner installment. I think it's cool. It's called Bounce Back Ability. It's a word. Bounce back ability. I love it. So we're going to talk about it a little bit. By the way, you can catch us on 28 audio platforms, IGTV, Rumble TV, or YouTube as well. Or you can go to our SimpleBiz360.com website. We've got all of our 5 seasons on there. And we feature the show from that week on the main page every week as well. So, today we're going to be talking about bounce back ability. And we put the Career Corner graphics up because it's really more for, I think, how can you help yourself overcome adversity? How can you help yourself inject a little more resiliency into your career? And why do I even talk about this? I was thinking about it the other day. My mother made some comments early on in my professional career. I chose sales as a path. And she said, I don't know how you do it because I just couldn't take people saying no. And in sales, much like baseball, you're a Hall of Famer as an offensive hitter, and if you bat 300, you're a Hall of Famer if you've done it consistently and sprinkled in 25 or 100 more hits, and you've done all the other things. I mean, that batting average, but you're getting out 7 out of 10 times. You're only getting on base with a hit 3 out of 10 times. So the same thing with sales. We get no way more than we get yes, and it can be you have to have a certain type of skin for that. You develop a turtle skin for that, if you will, always just letting that no bounce off you, and that, or letting that hard work end up going, the deal goes to a competitor and you've sunk in. My first example was I spent 100 hours on something, literally over months. It took me a conglomerate of 100 hours and I made $102. That's what I made on that. And the whole thing went to another competitor, and it was just like, oh my gosh, I only made, two more dollars than hours I spent on it. And it was a tough lesson, but it also, did not deter me from getting up on my horse and trying again. I had to develop that bounce back ability to do so. So not everybody is or has that sales DNA. They don't have that ability, in their business DNA to just take a brushback pitch and, hit the ground and dust off and get back up. I mean, you do have to develop that skin for all those no's. So I realize that. But in whether you're in administration or accounting or customer service, I mean, there are situations you run into during your career where, it's tough to bounce back. And, it hurts when someone says something bad about you, and it hurts when, you've made a mistake and somebody calls you out on the rug for it and they reprimand you for it. And, maybe it's tough to, work the rest of the day and come back the next day, or you get fired, you get terminated, laid off for whatever reason. You're a great employee, but, they just lay off the last 10% of the people they hired, and you're one of them. And, you just get caught up in that whirlwind, or just so many different ways where a company's downsizing, nothing you've done wrong, but now you're out of a job. And, it can be tough, and I realize it. And so, listen, we hear bounce back ability in sports and in military, and we do hear business stories about it. And, certainly the entrepreneurial world's full of it, where people, just try to start a company and they fail, and, they come back and try again. I was part of that. I mean, it took me 3 companies to finally get a hold on a success. And the first 2 I did weren't. And, one was a bomb, one was mildly successful, but, so, any rate, I just thought, what 3 things could we pack into this show that would really help you maybe, have your own bounce back ability be a little bit easier on you? And the first thing I would just recommend is just learn from, your own mistakes. I mean, we do make them, we do make our own mistakes. They're painful, they're hurtful, they're hard on us. Sometimes we look back on it and wish we hadn't, done something that dumb or, did that, but we did it. And, what do? Well, we have to learn from it. And, which really kind of feeds into the next point, which is learn from your mistake and try, number 2, to make sure you don't make that same mistake a second time. I mean, that's really the key to it, right? So you've got to observe and think through these mistakes. We make a mistake in business. Maybe it costs us a lot of money, costs us a dear customer, costs us a dear employee. Well, we've got to, get rid of technology, go someplace, think about this. What happened? How can we prevent this from happening in the future? How do I make sure this never happens again? And if you can feed into that, man, it'll make your future full of less mistakes. And the third thing I really think helps with this is, learn from others' mistakes. And I'll never forget sitting in that classroom in college and hearing that professor say, it was 20 years old, leaning up against the back wall of this class, social work class. And he says, listen, the wise man learns from his own mistakes, but the wiser man learns from the mistakes of others. And I just thought, wow, 20 years old, why didn't this ever pierce my head before? And why didn't I ever listen to this before? Why did I have to go out and make so many mistakes of my own, so many costly mistakes? But this was such easy, sage advice. And you know what? I started to run with that ever since that day at age 20. And I mean, my book and this podcast is much to do about learning from other third-party influencers and repackaging that and redelivering it to you, the audience, or the purchaser of the book, in ways of, saying, hey, here's a way to avoid mistakes and do things better. Now, how does all this help with bounce back ability? Well, if you have this type of continuous improvement as part of your business DNA, and let's just say you've grabbed onto these 3 tips today, it makes that rejection, it makes that failure, it makes that brush back pitch that made you fall to the ground and get dirty. It makes it so that brushing yourself off and getting up again is easier. It makes you, or allows you, to overcome that mass termination of employees. And now you've got to go find another job, because guess what? You took a suitcase of transferable skills with you from all your other jobs, and you can now plug and play this transferable skill suitcase, backpack, briefcase. You can plug and play this into your next opportunity. And you know what? Learn how to articulate that to a future employer when you're going through an interview, that, you've built up this whole treasure chest of, mistakes and experiences where you've learned to avoid making the same mistake twice. And you know what? You're learning from other people rather than making the mistake yourself. And therefore, this company could benefit from that type of employee. You know what I mean? So, it kind of feeds into the ability for you to just get up again, wake up the next day, and have a different outlook on the day. And it's no longer a glass half empty, it's a glass half full. And many people say, hey, you know what? At least you've got a glass of water. I don't care whether it's half full or half empty. At least you've got half of a glass, right? Filled with water. And that just makes it that much more palatable, and it will make your career, especially if you're a younger person listening to this, it'll make your career a little bit more manageable and enjoyable for sure, I think. So you don't always have to have that sales DNA to have that bounce back ability. So what's the tune for today? Well, you know what? We just say, keep on growing, keep on improving, this continuous improvement, learning from little simple podcasts like this. Just changing one thing tomorrow could change everything for 30 years. You never know. But we just invite you to keep on growing. And yeah, you know what? Derek and the Dominoes, Eric Clapton and the boys, they did the same thing. Yeah, in 1970. Keep on growing from the great Layla album. Enjoy it. Derek and Dominoes, 1970. Eric Clapton on guitar. We will see you in 168 hours.